my research assistant went up to Colgate College and photocopied a lot of stuff from his archives there, which includes his contract with the War Department, correspondence between him and J. Edgar Hoover running from the 1930s forward to the late 60s, seminars that he gave at a bunch of different military bases on the subject of uses of hypnosis in warfare, seminars he gave at his own college where FBI and military personnel came to listen, publications where he and documented MKUltra contractors with top secret clearance were writing together, publishing together, corresponding with each other. So he was very highly connected to all the way up to J. Edgar Hoover.
Right.
And I also have his correspondence with the CIA in the Bluebird Artichoke era, where he's making Manchurian candidate proposals. And in a lot of the documents, Bluebird and Artichoke, Project Dolphin, MKUltra, it explicitly describes creating new identities, creating amnesia, implanting new memories, wiping out people's memories. It's very clear, it's very detailed. It's not a matter of interpretation or making a guess. The Manchurian candidate is absolutely factual and has been used operationally going back at least as far as the Second World War.
Incredible. Now,
and I would say, well, all the documentation stops basically early 70s.
Okay.
So after that, we're not talking facts, we're just talking what I believe must be the case.
Right, speculation. Right.
I would say there's got to be Manchurian candidate sleepers in place all around the world being run by all the major terrorist organizations and all the intelligence agencies. Which, I guess it's not any worse than shooting somebody, hypnotize them, make them believe they're somebody else. But the problem comes back to there's a psychiatrist involved. There's psychiatric mind control. What are the ethics? What's the consent?
Right.
How's it followed up? What happens to these people afterwards?
Right.
What happens if one of these people kind of like blows a fuse as a civilian 10 years later?
Right, which we know has happened many times. Well, it's crazy, and it also it gives perfect plausible deniability. For the directors of the operation or whatever, they have a perfect tool because that tool itself doesn't even know that it performed the op.
That's the whole idea. Yeah, it's that if you're captured, you can resist interrogation, and then if you don't even know you've done the op, it's deniability to the hilt.
And in order to do that, they would try to bury these things as deep and deep and deep as they could, these altars and stuff, right?
Right, and so when you read the stuff from the 40s, it's relatively kind of simple-minded stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the undergraduate hypnosis club experiment or something. But again, it's got to become way more sophisticated, high-tech, with all kinds of layers and levels and codes and locking mechanisms.
Right.
And some of this stuff is described in the documents from the 50s, that you can insert a locking mechanism where you have to have the access code in order to get to this level, and then this person, I'm talking about a person inside the person,
right?
They don't really know what's going on, but if you give them the following information, then they'll flip to somebody else, and it just goes on.
It goes on and on.
Forever.
Yeah, that's one thing about things like this, and we talked about it a little bit off the air, but and you mentioned right at the beginning of the program about sort of slipping down the rabbit hole, and it really is like that. Once you start researching, it's like one thing leads to another, on and on and on, and in fact, so far, at least for me, it doesn't seem to have ended yet. There's still much to learn and lots going on.
It's on the internet and in the newspapers right now at Abu Ghraib prison.
Wow, I hadn't even to be honest, I hadn't even really considered it, at least in the terms that you and I are talking about, what might have happened there.
Well, Seymour Hersh had an article that was on the internet. I imagine you can find it pretty easily. It's only about within the last month or so, because it's since all those photos came out from Abu Ghraib.
Right. I remember Cy Hersh wrote, in fact, he was probably at least one of the major mainstream reporters that sort of brought that to light. So.
Well, it was either Washington Post or New York Times, and he said that the cryptonym for the operation is copper green. So when this stuff comes out, we see, first of all, photographs. And then the first question is, okay, wait a minute. It's like follow the money. Where did those photographs come from?
Right.
How did they get out of a highly classified, controlled space to the public?
Right.
That doesn't happen just, because somebody puts it in an envelope and mails it home by mistake. So, and you can't get into that secure space with a camera just because you're a prankster. I mean, and then you look at the photographs, you see there's a guy with a hood on,
Right.
standing on a box with electrodes attached to his genitals. Okay, well, wait a minute. How'd the hood get there? Somebody had to requisition a hood. Somebody had to requisition some wires. I mean, this is all equipment.
Right.
And so there's somebody who requisitioned that. That means there's a purchase order. That means there's a supplier. That means there's a transporter. That means there's a shipping and receiving.
That means there's a paper
some
trail.
black budget. And that's just the hardware.
Right.
And so then these photos come out, which is an election year. So you have to wonder about how and why they came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first thing you hear is, oh, it's just a bunch of out-of-control alcoholic people who are fooling around at the night shift. So we're going to blame it all on the individuals.
Right. It's not a systemic thing. Right.
And then just in the last month, it just, every week, every few days, it comes out a little bit, another layer,
Yeah.
another layer. Now it's, well, it wasn't just these 3 or 4 people that you see on camera. It turns out that there was a couple of other civilian contractors. And then it turns out there's a couple of intelligence people. And then it turns out, well, of course, the people at the top of the command didn't know, and nobody at the Pentagon knew. And then it turns out, oh, well, high-ranking people in the prison knew, like the lead military person responsible for the prison, but it was really just a failure of oversight. And so now people are getting in trouble for sloppiness, so to speak.
Right.
And then now it's coming out in public, well, no, really, people in the Pentagon knew about it, but that was a failure of oversight on their part.
Right.
But the thing is, it's not a failure of oversight. It's a program. It's an operation. It has a manual. It has a history. It has a design. It has a plan. There's people who look at it, design it. Somebody types it. It's in computers in the military intelligence world.
Right.
And then it's not a low-ranking deal. These are operations that go all the way back to MKUltra.
Wow.
So then it's sort of like the Inquisitors 500 years ago.
Right.
When they capture a witch, then they want to find out if she really is possessed by a demon. So how do they test that out?
Yeah, throw her in the water and see if she
Throw in the
sinks with a
water.
rock around her feet or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So if she drowns, it really was a demon.
Right.
No, it was the other way around. If she doesn't drown, well, too bad we made a mistake.
Right. Exactly.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. How's the logic? I've got it.
No, it was if she drowned, she wasn't a witch, but
She
they.
wasn't a witch, but it's too bad. If
Right.
she doesn't drown, then she must be possessed by demons. So
Right, and then they
drown.
burn her.
So then that's what it's like to be one of these low-ranking people to Abu Ghraib. If you are ordered as part of the program by the people up the chain of command to take these pictures and do these things, and you don't follow the orders, then you go to the brig.
Right.
If you do follow orders and you do carry them out and it leaks out, then you're hung out to dry.
You're done.
Well, what kind of way is that to run a freedom and democracy-based military?
Not a good one, Dr. Ross. Not a good one as far as I'm concerned.
So again, it comes back to not being against the military as such, but, I mean, they don't have a license to do anything they want, right?
Right.
And these programs, there's psychiatrists involved in these programs, guaranteed for sure.
Okay. Well, how do we? What do we do about it? How do we? How do we try to bring an end to it, or to
As I
bring
say,
some?
the main problem is basically apathy.
Right. Again, like you say, this information is available and it's not hidden. It's out there in the public domain. It's just a matter of people wanting to know about it and getting involved.
But it's just, I as individual me, I just take each opportunity offered to me.